Good morning. We have Maja here, Maja Vujinovic. How do you say that?
Good one. Morning to you, Maja Vujinovic.
Vujinovic. All right, got Maja
Good
Vujinovic
one.
here from FGNX, CEO of FGNX. That's Fundamental Global. Is that what it's called? Fundamental Global?
Used to be. That's right. Now it's FG Nexus.
FG Nexus. Oh, I see that website there. FGNexus.io. So we're going to continue the conversation we've been having with our community over the last 2 weeks on Ethereum, right? We've been all over the Ethereum theme. Maja, our community has made a ton of money on Bitmine, BMNR, Bitminer, Tom Lee's company there. And Maja, it looks like, why don't you give us a little background on this ticker symbol, what it used to be and when you got involved with it? We'll start there.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everybody. Good to be here and start of this fall. I think this is going to be exciting despite the markets kind of being a little bit down. And I think you said earlier, gold is up, which is a good thing. I expect Bitcoins to follow. So, and then Ethereum as well. So I think we're entering into a really interesting time. I think in general, Fundamental Global, as you said before, was a prior company we got involved with, and right now we've transitioned into FG Nexus, and the reason for that is because the company kind of saw a direction that the Wall Street was taking, and in general impact of blockchain, and they wanted to be part of a digital growth story. And so we have completely repositioned every asset we have, and in a process of concluding everything else to be positioned as one of the top treasury companies in digital asset space.
Okay, that's great. And just can you just give me the dates? Like, when did these transactions occur? Just to understand where you are in the process.
Yeah, sure. It all happened kind of the last 2-3 months, I would say. And then we have one more small transaction that's coming up, and I think that's all going to be concluded within the next week.
Okay, so I'm looking at the stock here. At least my data on Webull is showing a $17.5 million market cap with 1.33 million shares outstanding. Is that accurate as far as you know?
Well, our market cap is a lot larger than that because we actually have about 41.3 million common shares outstanding. Okay. And so I think that hasn't been calculated yet, but our market cap is a lot larger than that.
Okay, so what can you tell us about the Ethereum you currently have and the cash, the NAV, and the plans?
Sure. So I think your audience understands a lot about DATs, I assume, right? And so we are another digital asset treasury company. We've decided to accumulate Ethereum because of my background, and I'm happy to get into that a little bit later. We raised $200 million last month, and we acquired ETH with all of that. We currently have about $230 million because of the accumulation of ETH and the fact that we've decided to stake all of our ETH.
Okay, so you got $230 million ETH, and okay, great. So what are your plans going forward? And I'd love to talk about. I think it seems like Tom Lee's trying to become the what do you call it? MSTR, the MicroStrategy of Ethereum, right? And I see like he keeps talking about in the press releases like 5% alchemy he calls it or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I want to know your take on that. And is there room for multiple ones, or is the market just going to give a premium to the biggest one? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and a question that's asked by a lot of folks out there. I think there's a room for a couple of different Ethereum plays, and I think there's a room for a couple of different Bitcoin plays. There's a room for different Solana plays. It's not a winner take all. And there is a reason for that, right? I think that would be also, it would also mean that all the Ethereum would go to one digital asset treasury company, which is also really dangerous for kind of impacting the Ethereum itself, right? Because once you own a certain percentage of Ethereum, you have a way to impact that ecosystem. And so I think there is absolutely room for 3, 4, or 5 Ethereum treasury companies who need to collaborate together in order to build the ecosystem itself. And there is a reason for that, because Ethereum is directly connected to kind of Wall Street transitioning into a digital economy fully, and our stable coins, which is extremely geopolitical. So I don't think it's winner take all. You can have a certain percentage that will be owned by Bitmine, that will be owned by Zilla or others, and we are aiming to own 10% of
Wow. How are you going to do that? You got investors lined up?
We do.
Raising money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I've been in this industry since 2010. 2013, I bought a first bank for Tether. I launched the first trade finance deal on Ethereum itself. Invited Joe Lubin to come into GE, where I was the CIO at the time, and really kind of wanted to see what's so smart about these smart contracts. And I saw a huge potential, just given my background of emerging markets and payments. I understood how hard it was to do the cross-border payments, to, you know, where the Wall Street was going to go. And after running a number of those pilots and having hands-on experience, I realized that, you know, everybody wants to go to that minimum transactional cost. Everybody wants to go into the next wave of evolution of financial assets. And I think Ethereum is extremely positioned well for that use case. And so I think when I think about, when people ask me about investors, I mean, that's absolute given. The key here is educating investors of where Wall Street is going. Wall Street is going to move on a different rails. And there's not going to be, again, even one winner, such as Ethereum. There will be others who will take part of that. But Ethereum is in an absolute lead. And I think that therefore there is space for owning that much of an asset as well.
Okay. I'd like to get a little bit into why Ethereum all of a sudden has become so hot it feels like about 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm not a big crypto person. Okay. I don't understand, meaning, you know, the technicals underneath it of why it becomes so popular and fundamentally the use cases and everything. But from like an outside perspective, it almost looks to me like Bitcoin is the gold of crypto, while Ethereum might be like the USD of crypto. I don't know if there's any truth to that looking at it from outsider perspective, but basically I'm getting to, it seems like from what I'm hearing, Ethereum has more functional utility, while Bitcoin is just an asset, you know, store of value like gold. Is that my right understanding? Like, what is so hot about? Why did Ethereum take off here in the last 6 months?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, look, again, I was in Bitcoin in 2010. I saw a huge need for something like that, given that I've lived and worked in mobile payments in Africa and LATAM for a decade. And Bitcoin is an absolute store of value. It is a asset that has provided financial freedom to a lot of people around the world. But you're absolutely correct. Ethereum has more utility, right? There is something called smart contracts that are able to provide us with programmable assets, programmable money, programmable agreements. And so when I look at the stats on some of the stable coins in the last couple of months, in 2017, I'll tell you this, in 2017, after my work in Africa and in blockchain from 2013 and being part of the Tether story from early days, I realized that, you know, I think Chris Dixon calls it a WhatsApp moment for crypto. I mean, I saw it in 2017 where I said that stablecoins are going to be the killer use case of crypto. And so most of that, Ethereum launched its first synthetic dollar on Ethereum. And so remember, that story of Ethereum being actually used for the utility begins really early on. So then you're looking at last decade, which, by the way, Ethereum celebrated 10 years, like I think it was about a month ago. And you're looking at years of piloting, years of putting data on that, years of using those smart contracts. And so these things take a while, right? I mean, internet took over 20 years to really develop to where it is today. So all of these assets, because they're speculative in their nature because of price, really have have not been reliable to some extent. However, though, if you look at charts over the last 10 years of Bitcoin, right, it's been a most performing and top performing asset of all time. Ethereum, I think, is going to come into its moment in the next year, 2, 3, and 5, because every single institution on Wall Street is building and piloting on Ethereum. $200 billion of stable coins, and 60% of that, 70% of that is all built on Ethereum. And that's global, and that's only going to go into trillions. And so I think we are just seeing the lag of time, and you're seeing the opportunities kind of just fruition now, where Ethereum has been a stable network. Most people will say, hey, look, it's more expensive than something else. I think a lot of times that doesn't matter. Wall Street wants reliability, wants trust. As a former executive, I could tell you, as somebody who's worked in emerging markets, the trust is the most important part. And so, and they want the cost lowered. And so that's what you get with Ethereum. And I think this is where that time is coming now. And in the next 5 years, you're going to see a massive boom in this space.
So what happened in the last 6 months? Why all of a sudden everyone is doing this treasury strategy all at the same time? Was there some kind of secret meeting in the crypto world? Because obviously it's not like Tom Lee came on TV and then all these companies are chasing him. That the plans must have been in place all at the same time. Someone knew something. What was the trigger for this to be the time?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I think it was like David Bailey, putting us all together, and we all, and you know who David Bailey is, right? He's obviously a legend in the space, runs a magazine, Bitcoin.com, has had one of the largest conferences in the space. But no, I think, look, I think it's an evolution of the space, right? We've seen first, early days, I was a miner. I got into this from kind of a curiosity perspective because I saw this need in emerging markets. And if I lived in the US, I don't think that I would realize that the need for kind of decentralization and T minus zero, right? But emerging markets, I had a hard time paying people cross border, getting my own salary, right? So I saw a huge need. Then from that curiosity, something else emerged. I saw the synthetic dollar creation by Tether, and I thought, wait a second, we're now moving into a digital world. Like, what does that actually mean? Then that transitioned into a bunch of ICOs because the smart contract capabilities provided people an ability to create a token out of thin air, right? And this is just capability of technology. Then we saw a boom of ICOs, right? And that then transitioned into something else. Then you started to see real use cases, not just speculative use cases of where this could go. Then you started to see Bitcoin being taken in seriously by sovereigns, by wealth funds, by family offices, and saying, hold on, $1 is in a decline, right? We have a massive amounts of debt around the world. What are the safe assets, right? And so people obviously went to silver and gold and real estate, right, to some extent. And then they realized that Bitcoin was continuously on this rise, and they started paying attention to Bitcoin. And they said, okay, well, let's do this. And then Michael Saylor, as you know, out of the blue, came up with this idea, and he's the kind of ultimate guide for a lot of people to do this. I do think this is not the only evolution. We are going to evolve even further from these stats. And I think in the last 6 months, what has happened is that people started to realize that they can actually capture this asset in a very interesting way that allows institutional investors to invest where originally they were either scared to invest in crypto or they didn't have a mandate to hold crypto. And not only that, if they went into ETF, you could have told me, hey, why not ETFs? Well, they can take an ETF, but ETF is quite, fixed and it's passive, while entities like that are super active because of staking, right? Because Ethereum is proof of stake. You can stake it, which means you're part of the network. You're constantly contributing to the network. You're supporting the network. You're securing the network, right, on these transactions. Then you can restake it. And on top of that, which again, I alluded to earlier, where the things are transitioning is we're going to start to build infrastructure that is around kind of tokenized dollar, where tokenized dollar is going to run on. So think of tokenized stocks and bonds and, everything else, treasuries, right? And so I think that's the kind of next evolution where these businesses and DATs are going to have to come up with businesses that are accompanying the actual holding of the asset itself. So in the last 6 months, I think it was a combination of Michael Saylor doing that, people realizing you could do that with other assets. And then on top of that, that institutional investors and people around the world really don't have any other access. And the best way to do that is to own the stock of the company. Because think about it, most people are never going to want to learn about this. They don't have time to learn about this, right? And so, as I said earlier, owning an ETF is quite a passive way to do it. You're not earning any yield on that asset. Where when you own our stock, and we are constantly earning yield on the Ethereum that we own, and that's about 3%. So you asked me earlier what our company has right now in cash. I mean, we have about 4 million in cash just for things in emergency and small operational expenses, but everything else is absolutely focused on Ethereum. And we're making about 7 million right now just on staking.
7 million per what, quarter?
Per quarter. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a path to profitability here as well? Like when people invest in these ETH treasury companies, is it just about it's not just about the asset value? Do you have like a business plan or a vision for what kind of profitability your company is going to achieve?
Yeah, profitability might be tough at the moment in terms of other businesses. The profitability for us staking Ethereum is absolutely
right, that's what I mean.
clear.
Yeah.
That's very clear. For the rest, at the moment, we are definitely looking at how stablecoins are going to develop and the tokenization side is going to develop. And by the way, if everything is okay on the macro side, given the news with Trump's health and everything that's going on, right? If we continue on this path that is all, that we're on the path towards clear regulation and tokenization, you might be looking at something as next year where we get a clear regulation around tokenized, let's say, bonds or equity or whatever. And so in that case, some of the DATs will be transforming into probably a smart operating businesses, but that is again attached to their assets.
Yeah, that's staking though. That's 3% of the value of the ETH is what you expect to earn in revenue per year.
That's minimum.
Is that per year, 3%?
That's right. Yeah. So you're looking at 3 to 4%, and then and
are there operational costs with that, or what's the margin? The profit margin on that revenue?
Very small operational costs on that, like extremely small, almost non-significant operational costs.
And then what do you plan to do with that revenue that comes in? Buy more ETH?
Buy more ETH.
Okay.
Absolutely buy more ETH. Because remember, the more ETH you own, the more you can have a say in consensus of Ethereum, and the more you can have a say and participate and really support the whole ecosystem as it grows further, right? Be it on tokenization or be it on stable coins.
Okay. I'd like to talk about the stock a little bit. You mentioned you raised, what was it, $200 million? Was that in a private placement?
Yes, it was a PIPE.
Okay.
PIPE, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And are those shareholders, are they locked up or they can sell at any time? What's the deal with those?
They're not really locked up, no. So I think that we only had 45 days until shares are registered, but there's no really lockup in these types of vehicles.
Okay, so then how do you look at? Let me just show the chart so people are aware. We see the stock was up to 41, now it's at 13. How do you look at that stock in terms of overvalued, undervalued? What are your plans for this? Do you plan to use a ATM, and if so, like what kind of premiums would you want, before you hit an ATM to buy more ETH? Any comments you can make on that?
Yeah, sure. We do have an ATM we plan to use. We have a $5 billion ATM we want to use, but on the rest, we can't make comments in terms of the specific plans, just because, as you know, ATMs can be very sensitive to a stock. I think the stock is extremely undervalued because we just started, right? And I think you brought a point earlier. There are there are 3 or 4 vehicles right now. I think that I would say 2 that are significant in Ethereum. The rest, I think they're all growing, right? And so we started just about not even a month ago, right, to kick on the market. And so I think we have to steady the course and focus on acquisition of Ethereum, really providing trust on the staking front, because that's extremely important. As you know, crypto is still very shaky in its infrastructure, and so we have to provide trust to our shareholders, to our stockholders, and we have great partners to do that. We partnered with Anchorage, we partnered with Galaxy Digital, and we partnered with BitGo, and so for all of our staking capabilities. And so our focus is really to when we unlock the ATM, to really buy more ETH, and to just keep buying ETH until we can get to our 10%, and really focus on kind of creating that relationship with the rest of the Ethereum ecosystem, so we can participate and just grow our value per share.
Okay, and are private placements a part of that too, or just going to rely on ATM?
At the moment, we're going to rely on ATM. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We also, I mean, I think it's really important to mention, right? The way we're going to do that is probably within the next week or two, and we do have, that the shelf registration of ATM is, as I said, 5 billion, which within that 5 billion, it includes 4 billion of common shares and 1 billion of our preferred stock too.
Okay, very nice. Anything else you want to touch on, which I haven't asked you?
No, I think this is an exciting time. I think this is really exciting. We're going to see, I think most people like you don't really, I remember in 2011 when I came and pitched Bitcoin to hedge funds, they thought that I was some kind of a, Nigerian scam, right? Letter that you're receiving from some kind of a prince. But I think today, this is where we are today. And I think this is, again, we're pitching Ethereum because we do think that Wall Street and global assets are going to move largely. One of the chains is going to be Ethereum largely. And so I think this is a super exciting time. I would encourage people to follow us. I would encourage people to get involved. And, I was right a couple of times before, so I think I'll be right this time as well.
Awesome. Great.
I wish you had this interview with me in 2011. I think your folks would be making a lot more money today. So,
you know what? We are doing pretty good here in our community. We're up 450% year to date in our official trading account. So we're on top of all the trends, Maja. Pleasure talking to you. Are there any other events we should be looking at this week to follow if people want to follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing a really cool event. Actually, thank you for asking. We're doing a cool event with Anchorage tomorrow, with the CEO of SharpLink as well, with the CEO of Sam Tabar, who I've known for a long time in the space, and then Rock from EtherFi. All very successful folks prior to crypto, and then a couple of them have experience. Sam Tabar has experience in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then obviously the CEO of SharpLink too. So that would be a really exciting conversation.
Awesome. What time is that? That's tomorrow?
It's tomorrow at noon. Yeah.
Tomorrow at noon. Beautiful.
Yeah, Eastern Standard Time. Yeah.
Thank you, Maja. Pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much.
Again, FGNX, everyone. Take care, Maja.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.